Jihad to Oakland, California. So, my name is Lara Giswani. I am with AROC, the Arab Resource and Organizing Center. I am very honored to be here in conversation with Janna Jihad, who is here from Nabi Saleh. You've learned a lot about her through this video, but today we're going to be in direct conversation with her, and you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions yourself. Just to get a sense of the format, I'm going to have some opening questions for her to respond to, and then we have some really awesome young Arab youth organizers here in the audience, and they're going to get a chance to talk directly to their counterpart here from Palestine, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. Sound good? So first, just to say for all of us here as people who are committed to social justice, it's quite an honor for you to be here as a Palestinian, as an Arab woman. It's an inspiration to see young people like you really lifting up our national identity and really producing new knowledge and speaking for ourselves despite all that's out there. So it's really awesome to have you. So we saw in the film that your village, Nabi Saleh, which I was really lucky to have visited and experienced firsthand, how welcoming your family and community are to activists and organizations from around the world. You often invite delegations to come and so you could educate more about Palestine. And often those delegations come from the United States, but also all around the world. Why did you choose right now to come to the US? Why is it that you felt compelled to do this amazing tour? And why now? Why the United States right now, if you could answer that?
So right now I'm on a speaking tour in the United States. I'm right now 13, so that was like 5 years ago. So, yeah. So right now I've been like last year to South Africa, the year before also, and I'm right now on a speaking tour in the United States to, like, basically to raise awareness about what's happening in Palestine and to speak about how our rights are getting violated and what's also happening. Basically, like, we know the United States is basically supporting Israel, like, a lot. And especially right now that we have Trump as the president and, you know, the deal of the century, we have Jared Kushner, we have, like, they ended funding the UNRWA, which is basically, for example, in Gaza, most of the schools, like, I can say, like, about a lot of, like, a huge percentage of the schools in Gaza is basically from the UNRWA, and right now, like, a lot of children cannot go to their schools if, like, all those funds were, like, you know, just, you know, ending. And here in America, it's one of the most important countries, and it's very important to educate the, you know, the American population, because I believe you guys can change something and can make a difference. And it's very important to educate and raise awareness about what's happening in Palestine. And, you know, just here also we have the Israeli propaganda is really big, and it's really, you know, really strong here in America, like specifically. And we need to, like, know like what's actually happening in Palestine, how we're living under this Israeli military occupation. And I believe I can do that, so.
I know as a journalist, you also interviewed Congresswoman Slib. You also talked to Congressman McCollum about the bill. Can you speak to the audience a bit about those visits, what your intended goal was, and what you learned from those conversations?
So when I interviewed Betty McCollum, I interviewed her in Washington, so it was like 2 weeks ago, and I went to her office, you know, just talked about what's happening in Palestine and heard about her bill, basically HR 2407, which is very important right now. And basically it's very important for us as Palestinian children because we don't want to be in jails and we don't want to get detained in anything. So it was a very nice experience because basically to see those women supporting Palestine and how strong they are and how inspiring they are. And also Rashida, I interviewed her last week in Detroit. It was amazing, you know. She's just so inspiring, and she's someone that I really look up to, and I'm just impressed of, like, how she thinks and how she's analyzing everything and how she's speaking, and, you know, she's someone that I'm very, very proud of. Yeah.
We're all really proud of her too. So I know that you just shared you're in Detroit, Washington, D.C., you're also in New York so far, and Portland, is that correct? New Jersey,
yeah.
Probably other places.
Yeah, still going on.
So, and you're going to be visiting more of SoCal, Florida, Chicago, amongst other places. All the places we mentioned have actually really strong solidarity movements and a lot of grassroots organizing and connections across different communities. What are some connections you made during this visit on this tour? And what are the connections or the new connections perhaps you've built that you're excited to bring back home to Palestine?
So during my visit, or during my speaking tour here in the United States, I met a lot of people, and especially like diverse communities. Like for example, I met a lot of African Americans, immigrants. I met Hispanic people, Native Americans, and just basically learned about their issues here in America, which is something I personally, as a Palestinian child living under the Israeli occupation, can relate to. For example, the black children who are getting killed as a Palestinian child, I can relate to because my children are, like the Palestinian children are basically also getting killed. If we're against that, we have to be against that too. Like, I can relate to the children in cages on the border, which is also, if you're against that, you have to be against detaining the Palestinian children. So a lot of, their experiences and this injustice that is going on in the world, it's basically something that I would love to bring back with me to Palestine because, we need to see that also other children are suffering and we have to fight for all of us and not for only the Palestinian children, but we all have to stand up for this injustice and we all have to unite.
To an audience in Oakland, California. We understand you as both a journalist, as an activist, coming from an activist family, and very committed to the liberation of our people, liberation of Palestine, but all oppressed people, as you mentioned. I wonder if you could speak to a little bit around how you understand the different roles of various sectors to liberate Palestine. There's the youth, right? We have elders, and we have workers, we have journalists. We also have people in diaspora, and we have allies, right? So all of us play a particular role in lifting up and supporting the folks on the ground in Palestine, but also to support sort of putting an end to the occupation and liberating Palestine from apartheid and Zionism. Can you speak a little bit about how you see both your particular role as a young journalist and activist, but also others and those various sectors?
So first thing, I consider myself as a journalist and also as an activist. So basically my role as a journalist is basically documenting what's happening and, just covering whatever is happening, trying to comment on what's happening by, just reporting and posting my videos on Facebook. My role as an activist is basically resisting in a lot of different ways. For example, using art, poems, using soccer, using singing, anything. So basically, resisting can be, expressed in a lot of millions of ways. And for me personally, I use a lot of those ways, like demonstrations and all of that as an activist and trying, to just speak about what's happening. And as you said, we have a lot of parts of society that can, just help. And basically, for example, the youth, we basically go on demonstrations. As the next generation, we basically have to be more educated than the last generations because, I believe that we are the generation that can make a difference. So we all have to be educated. We have to know what's happening around us, what's happening internationally, and how we can help. Also, for example, the workers, the workers, they're related to the BDS. They usually when they receive food or whatever from around the world, I think they can basically just refuse on taking any Israeli products or anything like that. The teachers, they have to educate those children because they're basically the next generations, and they have to be the educators. And they have to be the ones who are just telling us how we can help. And for example, the people who are the Palestinians who are basically the refugees outside of Palestine, they basically have to just tell their stories. For example, my grandma, she always tells me her friend's stories in 1948, and that's something very important, especially for us, the Palestinian community, because those stories are not supposed to be forgotten, but we need to know them, and we need to tell them to our children, to the next generations, because it's something that is really, effectful, and it's something that is really, it happened, and it was very painful for the Palestinian community. And each of us, can do different stuff and can resist in millions of ways, like playing soccer, you can sing, you can dance, you can do whatever. Just, you can resist in your own way by drawing, by anything. And I believe we all have to figure out our own ways to resist and to just basically defend those children who are just living under occupation.
A lot of the dire circumstances on the ground and the resistance happening across the world, but also by especially young people in Palestine. Given all that's happening, including the relationship between Netanyahu and Trump, including the continued encroachment of settlements and theft of land, and the ongoing fact that refugees are still not able to return, and the military occupation, the support of that by the United States, the connection, right, between the way in which Israel is training local law enforcement across the world, all of that can seem really dire, right? But we hear a lot of hope in your voice, and across the tour and the different times you've spoken, you're really, really lifting people up to move and act. What inspires you and what makes you hopeful about the future for Palestine and about the future for a liberated Palestine?
So basically, hope is something, if we lost hope, we cannot resist. And hope is something very important for me as an activist and as a journalist and as a Palestinian child. Because basically, just thinking about how we would live without occupation in a free Palestine, just going to the sea without checkpoints, going to my school, with no checkpoints, just, being in a liberated Palestine, getting all my rights as any other child deserves. It's just super, it pushes you to just continue, and it just basically gives you hope. And also looking on a lot of the stuff that happened to a lot of other nations, like in South Africa, for example, seeing how they resist, seeing what they did and what they accomplished. Basically, they got their political freedom, unfortunately not the economic freedom, but basically, just a lot of stuff that are happening, and a lot of people, they liberated their countries, and a lot of stuff happened. They made a change, and it's something we want to do, and we want to just be liberated and just live our childhood, gain our rights, just live a life where we're not living under this Israeli military occupation. It's just so lifting, it just gives you that push to continue resisting.
Organizers who have a couple questions for you. I know you hung out with them and now you guys are besties. So who wants to ask the question first? You want to take the microphone?
You have experience and achieved so much at such a young age, being a young journalist. How do you also make sure you have time to experience the childhood you deserve?
So basically, I am a soccer player. I do a lot of stuff, try to live my childhood as much as I can, but basically living under occupation, your childhood is even violated. Because just even sometimes when me and my friends would just go outside on the street, try to play soccer in the middle of the street, some soldiers would just come and start shooting at us, gas canisters, because of us trying to play in the middle of the street. Also, I love swimming, and I only went once to the sea in Jaffa, because we cannot go because of the walls, because of the checkpoints as Palestinians. So I try to live my childhood as much as I can, but still, we're living under occupation, which is trying to violate everything they can violate. Yeah.
So what advice can you give us as youth to follow our dreams?
Basically, there are a lot of stuff, like we are basically the next generation that can make a difference, and we have to make a difference. It's our duty, you know, just like looking about how the leaders today are, they're all separated, they're all divided, they're all just concentrating on their just like, you know, their self-benefiting or whatever, and they're not caring about others. So we basically have to dream, like we have to dream high, and we have to dream a lot and dream something that can be helpful to our society, because we basically want to live in a world that everyone loves everyone, and there's no racism, there's no sexism, there's no nothing. We just want to live in a better world where there is no occupation, where the children are basically living their childhood. And we all have to study. I know we hate school, but you know, like we have to study. We have to just, you know, grow this generation and just become an educated generation. That, because education is basically, as Nelson Mandela said, is the weapon that can be used to change the world. And we have to use our education as the weapon to change the world. And yeah, we have to just dream and try to be part of changing this world into a better place.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say you're like everyone here's role model. Like we all look up to you. You're definitely an inspiration for us. Like you're only 13, but everyone here looks up to you like so much. I just wanted to ask who's your role model? Who do you look up to? Who's your inspiration?
Okay, I have a lot of role models, but like, you know, okay, so one of my role models is basically my mom. So my mom raised me as a single mom, and I believe she's a very strong, independent woman. And, you know, when she was born into a family where her father was in jail, and her mom also is my role model. You know, she was also very strong, and my mom is a really great activist that is always very active about her rights, about her children's rights as a Palestinian. She's also the director of the Women's Department in the Ministry of Social Development, so she's fighting for a lot of stuff, and she's just someone that I look up to. I look up to my grandma too, so I love my grandma. So she's so funny, and she basically also raised me. She was like always there for me. And you know, when I'm sad, when I fight with my mom, I just always go to my grandma, and she's like the mediator between us. And yeah, I also look up to a lot of other people like Nelson Mandela, like Mark Lamont Hill, like Rashida Tlaib. So yeah.
So we're going to open it up now to you all. I'm sure you have some questions that you would like to share. So we're going to take it in groups of maybe 3 questions and then have her respond to them. Who would like to ask first? Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. All right, let me go.
How did you get out of Palestine? I'm curious to know about getting the visa or whatever, because you're so well spoken.
So, Janna, first of all, thank you and your family, everyone on the ground in Palestine for doing what you're doing. We can only praise you for that. The work that we're doing, we see right now an awakening that's somewhat happening in the world around the Palestinian issues and the Palestinian cause, and more support for that. But at the same time, the counterpoint to that is those who are trying to keep the occupation alive are working even much harder to control Palestinians and to control the media and the message. And right now we're in a war of not only on the ground, but we're in a war of information. and the work that you're doing with the camera and the movies is very important. And I guess my question is, how do we fight this war of information, given all the resources that Israel has and the money to put towards that, with the limited resources we have?
You mentioned that you had met with Devin McCollum, who is very supportive of Palestinians and Palestinian children in particular. Have you had an opportunity to meet with other legislators who aren't so supportive? And if so, what has been their response?
So there were 3 questions. One is, how did you come here? Immigration.
You can say the first one, I'll answer it, and then.
Okay, so how did you get out of Palestine, essentially?
The process of getting out.
So, fun fact, I was born in Florida, so I I'm Palestinian. I was only 3 months old when I came back to Palestine, so I basically didn't live in Florida. I'm Oakland, I'm 100% Palestinian. So, yeah, so it was easier for me, I can say, although, usually I got stopped on the border. Like last year I was interrogated when I was only 12 years old. And, basically, it was actually the first time that I was not interrogated and I was not stopped. And I was like, oh my God, is that me? What? And then, yeah, it's hard for us as Palestinians. Like right now, I'm accompanied by Nadia, which is also someone that I'm very inspired by, and I love her so much. She lived throughout apartheid South Africa, and she's accompanying me because basically my mom couldn't come because she has a Palestinian passport. And it's like, I swear, the hardest thing ever to get specifically an American visa to come to America with a Palestinian passport. Unlike Israel, who, it's the easiest thing ever for them to come here to America. And it was it's easier for me, but it was not easy. But yeah.
So your passport's an American passport?
I have a Palestinian passport and an American passport. Yeah. So I'm Palestinian too,
The second question was on the war of information. How do we fight that despite limited resources?
Okay, so basically we are fighting that by raising awareness about what's happening in Palestine. Because, also I'm going to answer the third question with the second question. Basically, 2 weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and I met with a lot of representatives and senators, and basically I met with their offices and basically spoke about what's happening in Palestine. And that's very important because the power of the world is basically concentrated there, and that's how we can make a change, basically by raising awareness, basically by talking about what's happening in Palestine, by coming to Palestine and just filming whatever you see, or just coming, carrying the message of the Palestinian children, and coming and spreading it here in America or in whatever country you guys are from. So that's how we basically are trying to fight. And we all have to resist in our own ways and send our messages in our own ways and try to make a change, because just don't vote for Trump next year. That would change the world.
So any other questions? So you see one in the back, Kian, and then right there. Okay, go ahead.
So you mentioned that we should continue to document and write down the stories so they don't get forgotten in 1948 and 67. I 100% agree with that. I actually talked to somebody once, and they told me that in 1948, before that, Jewish people and Muslim people all lived together. Do you see a future for that, for one day everyone to live in a solution, or one day all together?
First of all, you're amazing, but kind of related to the question about the kind of war of information. What do you think is the single most dangerous sort of misconception that's present in the U.S. that we need to work to counter and disprove? And also, if I could ask one more, if you could talk a little bit more about solidarity with indigenous people here too.
our narratives. How are you able to control your own narrative? And how are you able to reclaim that and disseminate basically your own voice and your own narrative despite the propaganda? And what can we do here in order to uplift your story and support your resistance?
But you need what was the first one?
One was about a one-state solution.
Okay, yeah. So basically, as you said, Palestine is a holy land, and we used to all live together as Palestinian Jews, Palestinian Christians, and Palestinian Muslims, like all living together with having a Palestinian ID, and then 1917 Balfour Declaration, and then 1948, 1968, and 1967, and that changed. Well, not really. It changed like from that side where the occupation is, but it didn't change. Like even in the West Bank, we have Palestinian Jews, which are Palestinians. We have Palestinian Christians, and we have Palestinian Muslims living together. And the Israeli propaganda is basically trying to say, oh my God, it's basically like a religious issue, and Palestinians are all Muslim, and we're all Jews, but like it's not. And we have Jewish Palestinians, and it's not a religious issue. And Palestine is a holy land that we can all live together. But the two-state solution and the one-state solution, so basically, the two-state solution is basically dead. Because where are the Israeli borders? 68% of the West Bank is basically settlements. And also, the two-state solution is basically unwanted by the Israeli government, so how is that going to work out? And I believe in a one-state solution where everyone can live together under one government, given the same rights. They can take that Zionist idea out of their head, and we can all live together. Because I really don't mind any person that believes in peace, love, justice, and equality to live with me. And we also need the right of return to the refugees. We all, like all those rights, we all have to have the same equal rights, just equality and everything. And yeah, I don't mind living with anybody. And what was the second question?
One of the most dangerous. What's the most dangerous misconception here in the U.S. that we have to challenge about what's happening in Palestine? Maybe you answered it.
Oh yeah. Well, the Israeli propaganda, So look, like most of the American/international channels, especially like on the TV, are basically, brainwashed, and they're always talking about the Israeli side and what's happening, and even like the CNN itself. Let's look at it. I think it was like 2012 or 2014 where it was like, the war in Gaza, and it was that very difficult time in Gaza where houses were getting demolished every single day, children were getting killed, and a lot of stuff were happening. So a Palestinian photographer from Gaza took a picture of Gaza, which was basically demolished, and posted that picture. And CNN posted that picture and said, it's Israel. And basically like, what? That's what we did to Israel? But that's what was done to us. And then, the photographer just was like, that's Gaza, and, stuff, and like after that deleted it. But it shows how they're basically brainwashed and trying to brainwash the people, especially here in America, trying to say, oh, that's Israel, but like, no, that's Gaza, that's what they did to us. And they're trying to just like show, like, just try to basically speak about other stuff rather than speaking how the Palestinian children are getting killed, how the Palestinian children are facing checkpoints every single day, going to their schools. Like, for example, personally, instead of me going to my school in about 25 to 30 minutes, if there were checkpoints, I have to go to another way that takes me about 2 hours and a half to 3 hours just to reach my school. How our schools get raided, and just like people get arrested and children get arrested from their classes, how we cannot concentrate while studying because of the raids that are happening outside, how we wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning on the night raids. They don't want to show that. And they just want to basically try to brainwash the people, and that's, I believe, is the very mostly is the very most bad thing here in America.
And there was a question about solidarity with indigenous people right here in the United States.
Explain that.
Can you just want to speak more to it?
Sure, well, both people are like subject to settler colonialism, right? So you have native people in this state whose land is, stolen.
Yeah.
Live with that legacy. How do you kind of live?
Yeah, no, I was trying to get what group specifically. So yeah, you're talking about the Native Americans. So basically, I read about what happened to the Native Americans, and it's basically something that I don't want to have. I don't want it to happen to Palestine. And it's very sad how it's basically what's happening here in America, how basically they tried to eliminate all the Native Americans, and that's basically what's happening to the Palestinians, and the world is not seeing that, but seeing it as a different issue, but it's basically the same issue, the same colonization, the same, the same killing, the same eliminations and everything. So it's basically something I, as a Palestinian child, can relate to, and it's something that I'm very sad about. And it's something that had to be more spoken about, which is one of the most important stuff here. And I really don't want any similar thing to happen to Palestine because, it was their land, and right now, basically, they're not treated as the landowners, and I don't want to be that person. Yeah.
The last question was about how is it that you're able to create your own narrative, and what can people here in the United States do to uplift that more?
So basically, personally, my reports are usually live videos, so they cannot say that's propaganda, they cannot say that's wrong, they cannot say they edited the video and changed stuff. So, although we have a lot of people who are still saying it's propaganda, but it's pretty clear, and my message is pretty clear, and you guys need to figure out your ways to change it, and you guys need to figure it out yourself, and just know how you guys can change what's happening, but I'll help you. You guys. So you guys can do a lot of stuff. For example, one of the most important stuff is call your representatives, and you're all welcome, and you should come and just see what's happening. You guys should just come and see what actually is happening, and just speak about what you personally saw. And so basically try to raise awareness and try to share the message, how our rights are getting violated as humans, as normal people, as normal children that are supposed to live like any normal child around this world. And yeah, you guys need to figure it out yourself.
Quick plug on your seats, you each should have had a postcard about HR 2407. There's also a petition outside to sign from JVP on the table, so please be sure to do that. I was going to make that plug, but you made it for us, as a good organizer would. And the last thing is just to touch on the indigenous solidarity with Palestine. Every year we go to Alcatraz as a Palestinian delegation on when people celebrate Thanksgiving here, which is the colonization of this land. We go to express solidarity with indigenous people at their ceremony on Alcatraz Island. And just wanted to name that youth from Acacia came years ago from Ada and actually performed Depkiv during the sunrise ceremony in solidarity. So there's a long history of that work, and the Bay Area is really proud of that.
Also, one other thing that it's like a personal experience, more of like something that you can do, but you guys can also do that. So basically, we created an initiative which is called Shamsan, Two Sons, which means two sons in Arabic, 3 years ago, and we basically interviewed 300 Palestinian child to basically try to create a platform for their stories to just be spread around the world. And we chose 13 child for a calendar and stuff, and tried, basically those interviews were not interviews, but they were for them to draw something and try to express their stories using art. And one of the children who were interviewed and who drew something, his name's Ahmed Dawabshe. Maybe some of you heard about him. So Ahmed Dawabshe at the time was a 4-year-old child, and the story of Ahmed Dawabshe is pretty painful. So It was a normal night for him and his small family. It's him, his mom, his dad, and his 18-month-old brother. His name was Ali. And basically what happened, they were sleeping in their house. So, they were sleeping in their house, and it was a normal night for them, but the only thing that happened was that the settlers, they live in a village called Duma next to Nablus, so they're not right next to a settlement. So the settlers, they came and raided the village and started shooting Molotov cocktails in their house and breaking the windows. So the first Molotov cocktail came in the in the bed of the baby, and the baby was burnt alive. They were, just imagine yourself, some of you here are parents. So basically the two parents just woke up and tried to basically just save their child. They didn't even concentrate on that the house was burning. They only wanted to save their child. So their child was never saved. But even when they were trying to save the child, more Molotov cocktails were getting thrown at them. And Ahmad, when he was 4 years old at the time, he just ran into the living room. And they all got burned except for Ahmad Dawabshi. He's the only survivor. His 18-month-old brother got killed, his mom got killed, and his dad got killed. So he's the only survivor, and a huge percentage of his body was burned. And he spent 1 year in the hospital just, getting treated because he was basically badly burned. And what Ahmad drew when we interviewed him, so we got him like a big paper and just a lot of colors and stuff. So what he drew, first thing he started with his house. So he drew his house in a very, very bright yellow, although his house is basically black from how it's burned. He drew his younger brother Ali playing on a bike, just around, and he drew himself holding an umbrella because he cannot get exposed to sunlight because he's basically burnt. He drew a lot of chicken and a lot of animals around him, and he drew two suns in the sky, one in the left corner and one in the right corner. When we asked him, why did you draw two suns? There is one sun in the sky. And he was like, that's my picture. I want my picture in my world to be extra sunny and brighter. And basically, psychologically, if you basically explain his drawing, those two sons were his two parents. And that's why we call it Shamsan. So basically, we're trying to raise awareness about what's happening, about those stories by art, and you guys can use art also. You guys can sing, you guys can write poems, you guys can write whatever, and use your own ways to just basically raise awareness and speak about the Palestinian issue or any other child who's suffering around the world.
More questions? There's a missing microphone in this crowd. Anyone happens to find it, you just be sitting on it, it's next to you, it's in front of you, just lift it up, feel free to bring it up to the front, we'd really appreciate it. So we have a question up here. Do you want to use the microphone?
Why did you choose to be a journalist?
So I started journalism when I was 7 years old. So how old are you? Last year. So I basically started journalism when I was 7 years old. It was when I realized that there were not enough journalists who covered things that happened in Palestine. Like when my friend Mustafa was killed, my uncle Raju was killed, the children were badly treated by the occupation, a lot of stuff were happening, and it was just not making any sense for me. So I just held my mother's phone and was in a normal weekly demonstration on a Friday and just held her phone and just reported. And maybe after a month, she just found like about 4 reports and then she just posted them. And I basically started because I basically wanted to raise awareness about what's happening and try to be the voice of those messages, the voice of those feelings that every Palestinian child is feeling, those sufferings that, like, their lives under this Israeli military occupation, how they're living and how they're getting treated. So I believe that I can make a difference, and I basically tried, and it's working, you know?
Okay, I don't know if I can project that far, but I don't have a question, I just have a statement. I just want to say I appreciate you coming out here, Jenna, and
Thank you.
taking education as a serious, topic to go around the United States with it. And I just wanted to say that although you're born in Florida, it doesn't make you less Palestinian in our eyes, and that many of us here relate to that dual citizenship, and I want to encourage you to constantly utilize and capitalize on that passport to educate further and just ask for resistance, and we fully Palestinian.
Regarding Palestine, oftentimes, or I think most of the time, the environmental issue gets dropped out. And the Palestinians have a long tradition of living on the land in honor of the land, how they build their houses and how they live off of the land. Israel likes to pretend that they're good about the land, but the environmental devastation that they're causing all throughout the West Bank, and especially now in Gaza, trillions of gallons of water is being, of the untreated water is being dumped into the sea, and the environmental issue that that's causing. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit about how you look at the environmental issues and how we can also talk about that to people, how Palestinians are incredible environmentalists.
And then there was another question over there. You need the microphone?
No, it's okay. I was just wondering how you've seen specific changes with the administration given the Trump administration. And during that time, what's changed?
So before answering those questions, I remembered something you guys can do. You guys can stand up and try to hold Israel accountable for whatever they're doing, because your taxes are going by your name for them to kill Palestinians. And yeah, the first question was about the environment. So Palestine is beautiful. Like, I'm not bragging, but like Palestine is actually beautiful. You know, we have a lot of water resources, unfortunately controlled by the Israeli authorities. We have, our land is basically one of the best. We have one of the best soils, basically for planting. You know, my grandma, for example, she had this like small garden behind her house, and she basically always plants some cucumber, some tomatoes, some beans, and whatever. And you know, the Palestinian traditions are basically that you eat from your land. Especially, Palestine is very famous for olive trees, and we always have this olive season where you basically have hundreds of olive trees for every single family. It's like October, something like that, and we all go every single day after school to collect olives. And after that, we, just go and sometimes make olive pickles, get olive oil from that, and it's amazing, because our environment is very nice. And something also is like something that is pretty bad. We have a water issue, which is basically, we have a lot of water in Palestine. But unfortunately, it's, as I said, controlled by the Israeli authorities. For example, let's take Nabi Saleh, close to my village, as an example. We have a water spring, which is only 20 meters far from the village. It's only a street that separates us. It's actually in the village, but it's on the mountain that is basically, the sediment is basically built on. So this water resource was basically giving Nabi Saleh most of the water. And when this sediment was built in 1976, they took over this water resource, and we started having only 12 hours of running water a week. And that's why you always see those black tanks on the Palestinian houses. And even, the settlers, they get 24 hours a day of water, being in an illegal, only Jewish settlements, and also paying, we pay 3 times the price they paid. Also, the tankered water, we got tankered water, not piped water. So it's basically, it costs pretty much like maybe 2 or 3 times the price that we have to pay if it's piped water. And the environment is something very important to me as an activist, and that's why I'm vegetarian. So you guys should be vegan, and you guys should be vegetarian, and because you have 18 months to save the planet.
I think that's a tough one for some of us, but there was also a question about changes under the Trump administration, any shifts you've seen on the ground.
So, after Trump and, after the deal of the century and, Jared Kushner and whatever, it gave Israel the opportunity to basically do more stuff. Like, for example, 4 days ago, a 4 years old, was he 5 or 6? A 4 years old child, he was called for interrogation. And yesterday, an 8 years old girl, she was basically also interrogated. Yesterday, the village right next to us, they came and raided it at night, and exactly like 21 person was arrested, including a lot of children. And that they have, we basically as Palestinian children get subjected to military courts instead of civilian courts or children courts. So in the military Israeli law, it says if you're 12 years old or up, you can get arrested, interrogated, treated like a criminal because you're a Palestinian. And even that illegal law was broken yesterday with that 8 years old child getting interrogated, that 4 years old child being called for an interrogation. And it's pretty bad because Trump is basically covering for Israel, trying to play the role of the mediator in this issue, but he's basically the Israeli lawyer. And it's bad, and we don't want him again, and it's just so annoying.
More questions? I see one in the back, and then right there, and we'll take that one.
Well, first of all, it's such an honor to have you here, so thank you so much. I just returned from Occupy Palestine last week, and it was my 3rd visit, and this time so many of the conversations with my friends were about settlements and about how the settlements are basically built by Palestinians and how many people are going to work in them, and they're getting paid 6 times more the wages that they would within the West Bank. And I'm just wondering, what is the talk and how difficult it is to boycott Israel within the West Bank, Israeli products? And so just are there efforts or is there something that we can do to support the people who are feeling the necessity, the financial necessity to work in the settlements? How can we support them to stop that? Because I just felt like there was a lot of, just a lot of disillusionment by a lot of people that I was speaking with, and what are your thoughts about that?
You mean about boycotting the Israeli products in Palestine?
Yeah, and then just also about the amount of people who are going to work from the West Bank, going to work in the settlements, and how they're doing it out of financial necessity. How could we, there are efforts like that we could, as people in the U.S. who have money, support people so that they don't have to go and work basically for the colonizer, right?
So how to challenge the economic dependency on apartheid Israel within Palestine.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud of you. I was probably the first generation of Palestinians who came to this country, and I was embarrassed to say I'm Palestinian because the idea of being Palestinian is like my friends at work used to say, do you like camels? So they really were way back in their thinking about Palestine. And we were afraid because our name was, when you say Palestine, terrorists. That's all they thought. So I was afraid to say that. So thank God I left right after the 67 war. And I have not seen a room full of so many people, standing room, in a very, very long time. And we get many big speakers. I cannot remember names. But all these people came to see you because you are presenting something new to us. And I want to ask about your cousin, Ahmed. Is
does she have American passport? Can she come here? And it seems like the idea of having people so educated like you and so into resistance will help our cause, because people are getting tired of hearing the same story over and over, and we don't want to be victims, like we don't want to be victims, so you're bringing this fresh idea of the resistance, and I really am proud of your village that grows up girls like you who are fighting, because not every other village in Palestine have that thinking of resistance, I guess.
Thank you. And there is one last question.
Yeah, I just have a question. Something that comes up for me a lot is what it's like. It's complicated when I talk about it, because I'm married into a Palestinian family, and we just came back a couple weeks ago also, and it was beautiful. And by the way, we did see settlements all over the place, and they were villages, like cities. It was really impressive to me. I hadn't seen that in the news. Like here, looking at it, we were blown away riding through the desert and beautiful, like olive trees and Palestinian land, and then like, farmers, and then you see these villages and settlements. And that was shocking. I didn't even know how big that was. So when people say it's complicated, do you have like a 15-second response?
Thank you. So the first question was about, a lot of us here in the Bay Area, we have a long history of supporting BDS efforts, and as you know, it's being criminalized here in the United States. But it's different in Palestine, right? So a lot of folks, when they go to Palestine, it's confusing when there's Israeli products in the West Bank, or that Palestinians have to work in settlements and so on and so forth. So I believe the question was about is there anything people can do here to support people's struggle against the economic dependency on apartheid Israel in Palestine?
So basically, BDS is, I'm very surprised because, America is like that very, the freedom of choices, the freedom of speech and everything country, and that BDS is criminalized and it's illegal, and like, what the heck? And so basically, BDS in Palestine, personally, I basically also am, I boycott the Israeli products and the settlement products because, the settlements in Palestine in the West Bank are a lot. So, in Palestine, we're under occupation, and we're all occupied, and we're basically controlled by the Israeli authorities. So if we didn't receive their products, they would stop other international products to come to Palestine. But it's pretty, but we can, I believe, boycott it. We have a lot of other Palestinian products which are amazing. But it's pretty hard for us to boycott it as the Palestinian Authority. They cannot stop it from coming because it's not in their hands. And what you guys can do, I always say that you have to figure it out yourself. You basically, you guys, just try to stand up for all of that. Try to, be. The most important thing is basically to speak about the issue. Try to come to Palestine, and you guys, there is a minority of people that are working in the settlements because of the financial problems, and it's very sad, and I find it pretty bothering and annoying personally, and I haven't thought about it yet because, I don't know, it's just a new thing to think about, and when I know the answer, I'll let you know.
The best thing we all can do here to support Palestinians on the ground against the dependency on apartheid Israel, to put an end to apartheid Israel. The fact that this is a standing room audience, people are so excited to have a young woman's voice here in the United States. How can we bring more of that? There's a specific question about your cousin Ahmed. And
so thank you guys for coming. And I'm with my cousin and my best friend. look, she's not my cousin. Our grandmas are sisters, our grandpas are brothers, so like we're cousins. But I don't know, it's really complicated. Basically, no, I doesn't have an American passport. She wasn't born here or anything. She's fully Palestinian. She only has a Palestinian passport. So that's why she cannot come here. Like, it's pretty hard for her to travel or to get a visa or anything. And she's right now going to university and studying international law. And yeah, so. Okay, what did you say? Oh, she's studying in Bizet.
The last question, we always hear the situation in Palestine is complicated. It's too complicated to understand. Do you have a one-liner to offer the world, to offer the Bay Area when someone says it's complicated? How do you respond to that? What do you mean? So, I mean, you probably don't hear this luckily, but for us in the United States, when we bring the issue of Palestine and other social justice spaces even, it's not always so clear. And many people will use the argument that it's just too complicated to talk about apartheid, or too complicated to understand this struggle. It's been going on for so long, or it's just too complicated to even insert into other struggles, right? And so we know that's not true, but what is your one-liner? If you could give a 15-second response to liberal Zionists, for instance, saying it's too complicated to address this problem.
I always say that, it's not too complicated. It's clear. They're occupying Palestine. So if it's complicated, then everything is complicated. And the Black Lives Matter is complicated. And the immigrants issue is complicated. Then the Native American issue is complicated. You cannot understand any of these.
Cheryl, and person behind you, anyone on this side? All right, and then you're there. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say more of a statement. I really appreciate your courage and your intelligence and the fact that you're here. And I met your uncle once, and it's just so amazing.
Which uncle?
Yeah, sorry, I don't remember his name. But, and I'm an elected official in Berkeley, and every time that I bring up Palestine, I get shut down, but I continue to bring it up.
Ran on a platform that also included divestment from Israel, and never has happened before, and she won, right?
It just gives me more courage to see your courage.
Thank you.
And I didn't know what I was getting into when I brought up divestment from Israel. But I know now, and it gives me even more courage to continue to fight for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, and you are a role model, as one of the speakers said. I look up to you, and I'm curious what a day in your life is like, and how you have time to study and play soccer and know so much about the world. Just what a kind of your day is like, how you contain all of that.
One question on this side.
I used to work in Tawani, but it was over 10 years ago. And I've met amazing youth there, and you remind me a lot of them. And so I was wondering what kind of connections are happening between Palestinian youth from different villages. What does that solidarity and those connections look like right now on the ground?
First question was about what's the day in your life look like? How do you have time to play soccer?
What's that?
Cheryl just shared with you her.
Oh, right, yeah, right.
She doesn't want to miss anybody.
Yeah. So, basically, as I said, I unfortunately have to go to school, so I wake up like at 6 a.m. to get ready, and at 7 a.m. I have to go to school. And in school, I face checkpoints, so instead of me going to my school about 25 to 30 minutes, I have to take another way that takes me about 2.5 to 3 hours. And basically, the Israeli military checkpoints in the West Bank they are not checkpoints. It's not a checkpoint. It's a barrier on the street that blocks you from going, with armed soldiers right next to it. So even if you try to go in, they'll start shooting at you. So reaching my school, I reach my school, and sometimes my school's right in a clash point. So personally, we cannot usually open the windows because we don't want to smell gas canisters just that are getting shot right next to my school. In a lot of schools, they get raided and children get arrested from their schools coming back. I also face checkpoints, and those checkpoints are basically not a struggle for only me as a child or as a student, but also a struggle, for example, for my grandma. She started doing dialysis 3 years ago because of how much tear gas she used to inhale. So basically, she has to go to the hospital 3 days a week, and it's pretty hard, because of those checkpoints, she sometimes cannot go. A lot of women gave birth to their children on those checkpoints in the cars. A lot of people cannot go to their work or just the hospital or anything. So going back to my house, I have to study. So when I study, usually I cannot concentrate because of the rain that are happening outside. I usually try to play as much as I can. I'm always on my phone. What else do I do? I like to hang out with my friends, and I try to do whatever I can to just, live my childhood. But basically I like hanging out with my friends a lot, so yeah.
And then there was a question to you, are there any exchanges between youth from different villages in Palestine?
I know a lot of people, a lot of children, or a lot of youth from other villages, especially, even some villages in occupied 48 Palestine. And we always, we always on Thursdays, sometimes we always gather and try to talk about issues and stuff. And even sometimes in our schools, they try to just get away from political issues. So we're trying to make campaigns in our schools because we're all from different schools, from different villages, and try to speak more about what's really happening in Palestine because unfortunately they're not really talking about it. And yeah.
So we have a question from the organizers.
Oh no, I was going to introduce you.
Okay. I just want to add something to that point. Okay. I'm Nadia. I'm traveling with Janna. I'm with Shamsan, who's organized the speaking tour here in the US. This is now her third speaking tour. She's been to South Africa for the last 2 summers. And in 2017, we had a number of Palestinian children come along with her. And that is when we decided to name her the ambassador and to continue to speak on behalf of all the others, predominantly because she is so fluent in English. So in terms of Shamsan, the idea, my own background is that I am a South African activist, and I come from an activist background in the anti-apartheid movement. And I've experienced a lot of what the Palestinian children are going through right now. Some of the same things, like the night raids that I've heard the Palestinian children describe to me when we recorded, I felt I could completely relate, and it was our duty and responsibility as South Africans to stand with the Palestinian children and support them. So among the various projects that we have initiated with children in Palestine is to connect them with each other. And so in the very first tour, for example, that they did, the speaking tour in South Africa, Janna for the first time met a child from Susia, which is in South Hebron Hills, for example, who came along to South Africa and joined her on the tour. We're a number of other campaigns, so we are starting to work that way to connect children. The problem in Palestine, of course, as you know, things are very difficult. Freedom of movement is a problem. Resources, finance is also another issue. And children don't get to meet. So it's been wonderful to be able to do that and help to bridge that divide through social media. And one of our campaigns was the Global Walk for Freedom, where we had children from different parts of Palestine, the West Bank and in Gaza, South Africa, and a number of other organizations internationally, like in Italy, like in Turkey, for example, that all joined. And we did this walk with everyone linking up live on Facebook, so we could all see each other and connect with each other. And we continue to try to do that also with refugee Palestinians and others. So we really like your support. Some information can be presented. We've got flyers, and we can send that out. And we'd love partnerships with you as well to join. Thank you.
So we'll take one last round of questions. I see one over there, one right there, one right there, and we've lined up 4. Okay. So go ahead.
So some of the organizations I follow on Instagram concerning the violence.
Can you try to make your voice?
Oh, can you guys hear me?
No.
Seems like there was an insurgence and violence coming from Israel during the March, the Great Return, and I was just wondering if you could talk more about what that is, the March of the Great Return, and why that's such a threat to
Sorry, I'm not great at projecting my voice, but you talked a lot about hope and how your childhood has kind of been taken away from you, and I can see you're spending a lot of time, going around the world, raising awareness. But imagine for a second, everything is solved, the world is perfect. I want to know what's the first thing you would do? You're on vacation.
And then there was right there, huh?
Hi, thank you. I feel it's so moving and powerful to hear from a Palestinian child about what's going on here. So my question is, on your tour in the United States, are you ever able to get a non-fire audience that can hear this directly? And have you ever maybe had a chance, some of us are going to our congressman soon. It's possible to walk into the office of congressional representatives. Have you gone to any offices and had a chance for them to see firsthand the people that they are affecting every time they vote more money to Israel?
And there was one last question.
Sama,
It's
it's not our land, but it's where our land. We try to take care of it as best as we can. I worked for the Palestinian Liberation Organization in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, and the sentiments about the Palestinian Authority in Palestine was, how should I say? The morale was down about what the Palestinian Authority was doing for the Palestinian people, and I just wanted to hear a few words from you and your experience living your whole life in Palestine, and what you believe the people that are responsible for your well-being and how that works for you.
The first question was about the Great March of Return in Gaza, if you could speak to that and what's happening right now.
So basically, the Great March of Return in Gaza started in the beginning of this year. It's too sad. What? Oh, really? We're in 2019. Why? It's been a year. Why am I so confused? Yeah, Okay, so we're in 2019, so it's been a year, last year, and it started, a lot of children, oh right, yeah, I remember now. A lot of children got killed, a lot of people got killed, a lot of even journalists, a lot of, doctors and people who were trying to help and volunteer there. They were killed, they were injured, even on the border, they got arrested just because of them fighting and trying to defend their land, because Gaza is under siege. They cannot get out. Nobody can, basically, it's very hard for anybody to get in. And they just wanted their freedom. And I don't know if this is something that we cannot ask for, but because they asked for that, they received, instead of receiving their freedom, they received more blood, more killing, more demolishing, more siege, more arresting and injuring. And the Great March Return is still going on. I actually have a couple of friends from Gaza that I'm communicating with, and it's pretty sad.
I'm going to take the liberty of reorganizing the questions. There was a question about how is it that you've spoken in many places, and have you been able to speak to people who perhaps aren't already on our side, so not the same old crowd or not the same old choir. I would just want to add a response as a local Palestinian organizer in the U.S. and a call to all of us to do better. It's our responsibility in the United States, and when we put on these events, to make sure we're bringing our community, we're doing better at really outreaching and bringing our neighbors, our families, our friends, though we're not doing that. We shouldn't be putting that on our guests from outside. But all that to say, if you could speak to, I know you already answered the question that you have met with Congress people and you've interviewed them, in fact, and it's all online, so you should look out for those interviews. So if you want to respond at all to the crowds you've been speaking to, have you felt like there have been people who perhaps have been moved or weren't already in support of Palestine and shifted? And then the question of the Palestinian Authority, which
so basically the first question about about basically what's so basically here in America, not directly, maybe in some of the crowd there were some people, and I've met with some Republican Congress people. So maybe that counts, but also in South Africa. So maybe also in South Africa, I've also met with a lot of people like that. But here in America, not directly, and we're basically trying to talk with diverse and basically some pretty mixed crowds. And I would maybe there were some people in there. And the other question was the Palestinian Authority. So they're Palestinians, they're under occupation. I always say governments don't represent the population. So, basically we are not represented by them. So basically they are, I can say, controlled by the Israeli Authority because they're also occupied, and I really don't expect anything from them. But in fact, they did some good stuff, for example, not signing the deal of the century and a lot of other stuff that I'm happy I can say about. But they can do more. But there's not a lot in their hands, which is something sad. And basically the thing about the Palestinian Authority is that a lot of lives of people is in their hands. A lot of people are working for the Palestinian Authority. A lot of people are depending on them. And by basically cutting the fund on them and for them, it's basically hard, and it's very effective for a lot of Palestinian families and stuff. So, I don't know what to say about them, but I believe that most of the governments are not a good representation to their people.
And then there was a question about if Palestine was liberated, if we had a free Palestine today, what would you do tomorrow?
I'd be in Palestine. But what would I do tomorrow? I'd go to the sea. What would I do? Oh my god, I'm thinking. I love Akka, so I'd go to Akka. I've been 3 times to Jerusalem, so I'd go. You know, I'd just go all around Palestine. Where would I go? I'd just be so happy. I'd just throw 500 parties. It's just, oh my god, it's so exciting. And, yeah, it's just amazing. Oh my god, I can't imagine. But no, I can't imagine. Like, maybe like in 10 years, hopefully. I don't want to graduate school, and Palestine in that time won't be free, but like, hopefully it will. And, I'm imagining it's just so exciting, and yeah.
Take your calls to action, do everything we can do to make sure Palestine is free, so that once it is free, we fight for everybody's freedoms, because it doesn't just start and end with Palestine, as we all know, right? So we're all going to be in this together, and this is a community that's here to support you and honor the struggles in Palestine. Remember, please, remember a real call, pragmatic call to action, HR 2407. It's as simple as saying you will not support U.S. money going to the Israeli military so long as it detains children. It's a no-brainer. We want the United States to stop supporting Israel, period, so long as there's occupation. The very least we can do is take this step, which is a courageous act by Congressman McCollum. So get your postcard if you haven't and sign the petition outside. And make sure that you do everything you can in your communities to support the isolation of apartheid Israel by boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning Israel.